The morning sun filtered through the crystal dome of the Galactic Military Academy's main training hall. 200 cadets from 40 different species sat in perfect rows, their attention fixed on the massive Vexian, standing at the front of the room. Instructor Krathzor was an impressive sight, even among the diverse collection of alien warriors. His forearms were crossed over his armored chest, and his four eyes swept across the assembled students with the practiced gaze of someone who had seen too many battles and buried too many soldiers. Today we begin combat partner assignments, Krathzor announced, his voice resonating through the hall like distant thunder. You will be matched with opponents of similar skill levels. These partnerships will teach you humility, discipline, and respect for other species' combat methods. The instructor's clawed hand moved across the holographic display, bringing up names and species classifications. Cadets leaned forward, eager to see their assignments. Some whispered excitedly to their neighbors. Others sat in nervous silence, knowing that combat training at the academy was not a gentle experience. Krathzor moved through the list efficiently. Cadet Thronix, you will partner with Cadet Selimar. Cadet Pixon, you will work with Cadet Krosnull. Each announcement was met with nods of acknowledgement. The partnership seemed fair and balanced. Until the instructor reached one particular name, he stopped. His massive hand hovered over the holographic interface. For a long moment he said nothing. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Several cadets shifted in their seats, confused by the sudden pause. Cadet Lyra Vexthar, Krathzor finally said, and the room immediately tensed. She requires a partner for this training cycle. Whispers erupted throughout the hall. Every cadet in the academy knew that name. Lyra Vexthar, the Krathen warrior who had sent 15 opponents to the medical bay in her first month. The predator from a world where gravity crushed bones and the wildlife could tear through reinforced steel. She had never lost a match. She had never even been scored against. I need you all to understand something, Krathzor continued, his voice dropping lower, more serious. The Krathen are not like other species. They evolved on a death world. Everything on their planet tried to kill them, and they killed everything back. They have reflexes 3 times faster than most of us. Their muscle density allows them to bend titanium bars with their bare hands. They see in multiple spectrums and can track movement that appears as a blur to the rest of us. A Rathani cadet in the third row visibly shuddered. His fur rippled with nervous energy. Other students exchanged glances, their expressions ranging from fear to morbid fascination. Lyra Vexthar comes from a warrior bloodline that has remained undefeated for 3 centuries, the instructor said. Her species has a perfect combat record in this academy's history. Do you all understand what I am telling you? The cadets nodded slowly. Good, then hear me clearly. Do not volunteer for this assignment. Do not make eye contact with her when she enters this room. Do not engage her in combat unless I explicitly assign you to her. This is not cowardice. This is survival. She has already injured more cadets this year than any other student in the past 5 years combined. Krathzor's 4 eyes swept across the room. I will not ask for volunteers. I will select someone myself after careful consideration of their skills and defensive capabilities. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. No one moved. No one spoke. The very idea of facing Lyra Vexthar in combat seemed like volunteering for a trip to the medical bay. Or worse. Then, from the back row, a hand rose into the air. Every head in the room turned. Krathzor's eyes widened in what might have been surprise or horror. Cadet Chen, the instructor said slowly. Lower your hand. The human in the back row smiled. It was an easy, relaxed smile that seemed completely out of place given the conversation that had just occurred. With respect, sir, I'd like to volunteer for the assignment. The reaction was immediate. Several cadets gasped. Others made sounds of disbelief in their native languages. A Zixith student's mandibles clicked rapidly in what was clearly panic on behalf of the human. Marcus Chen stood up. He was average height for a human, which meant he was smaller than most of the warrior species present. His build was lean rather than heavily muscled. His dark hair was cut short in a practical military style, and his brown eyes held a calmness that seemed almost unnatural. He wore the standard academy training uniform, and nothing about his appearance suggested he was anything special. Sit down. Cadet Chen, Krathzor ordered. Sir, someone has to partner with her, Marcus said, his tone respectful but firm, and I'm willing to do it. You are from Earth, correct? Your species only joined the Alliance 3 years ago. You have no idea what you are volunteering for. Actually, sir, I've watched all of Cadet Vexthar's combat recordings, Marcus replied. I've studied her techniques, her movement patterns, her fighting style. I know exactly what I'm volunteering for. Krathzor descended from the platform, moving through the rows of cadets until he stood directly in front of Marcus. The Vexian towered over the human, easily twice his size. You watched recordings and you think you understand? Boy, watching a storm on a screen is not the same as standing in its path. No, sir, it isn't, Marcus agreed. But someone has to stand there eventually. Might as well be me. Why? The question was blunt. Why would you volunteer for something that will almost certainly land you in medical care? Is this human pride? Some need to prove yourself? Marcus's smile didn't fade. Nothing that dramatic, sir. I just think it would be interesting. Interesting, Krathzor repeated, his voice flat with disbelief. Yes, sir. Interesting. The instructor stared at the human for a long moment. Around them, the other cadets watched in stunned silence. Finally, Krathzor made a sound that might have been a sigh or a growl. You are either very brave or very stupid, Cadet Chen. Why not both, sir? Despite himself, Krathzor's mouth twitched in what might have been the ghost of a smile. Very well. Since you are so eager to meet her, you will get your wish. Cadet Chen, you are assigned as combat partner to Cadet Lyra Vexthar. Your first match will be in 3 days. I suggest you spend that time writing messages to your family. I'll be fine, sir, Marcus said, sitting back down. As Krathzor returned to the front of the room to continue the assignments, the Rathani cadet in front of Marcus turned around. You are insane, he whispered. Completely insane. I will give you 200 to 1 odds that you do not last 30 seconds against her. Marcus pulled out his data pad and transferred credits to the Rathani's account. You're on. Make it 100 credits, the Rathani's eyes widened. You are serious? You actually think you can last longer than 30 seconds? I think, Marcus said quietly, that everyone has been thinking about this the wrong way. What do you mean? But Marcus just smiled and returned his attention to the front of the room, where Krathzor was finishing the assignments. The instructor's voice continued, but Marcus was no longer really listening. Instead, he was thinking about the videos he had watched, about movement patterns and breathing rhythms, about energy expenditure and recovery times, about the way predators hunted and the way prey survived. 3 days until the match. It would be enough time. The training arena observation deck was packed. Word had spread through the academy like wildfire. The human cadet was going to fight Lyra Vexthar. Every student who could get clearance had crammed into the viewing areas. Those who couldn't were watching from their quarters through the academy's broadcast system. This wasn't just another training match. This was either going to be a legendary upset or a spectacular disaster. Marcus stood in the preparation room doing stretches that looked almost casual. His movements were slow and controlled, focusing on flexibility rather than explosive power. He rolled his shoulders, twisted his spine, and bent forward to touch his toes. The door slid open behind him and Instructor Krathzor entered. Last chance to withdraw, the Vexian said without preamble. No one would think less of you. That's not true, sir, Marcus replied, not stopping his stretches. I would think less of me. Krathzor moved closer, lowering his voice even though they were alone. Chen, your species is new to the Alliance. You do not understand what the Kurthan are. They are apex predators, top of the food chain on a world that makes Earth look like a vacation paradise. Lyra was hunting creatures that could bite through combat armor before she was 10 years old. She has trained in combat since she could walk. You are talented, but you are not ready for this. Marcus straightened up and looked at the instructor. Sir, can I tell you something about humans? What? We're not impressive. Not physically. There are species in the Alliance that are stronger, faster, have better senses, natural weapons, armor, venom. Compared to most of you, we're pretty average. I know this, which is why you should not be fighting her. But that's the thing, sir. Humans weren't always at the top of Earth's food chain either. For most of our evolution, we were prey. They were bigger predators, faster predators, things with claws and fangs that could kill us easily. Marcus smiled, but somehow we ended up winning. And do you know how? Krathzor's 4 eyes studied the human carefully. How? We were stubborn, and we never stopped moving. Before the instructor could respond, an announcement chimed through the room. 5 minutes until the match. Krathzor shook his head slowly. I hope you know what you are doing. Me too, sir, Marcus said cheerfully and headed for the arena entrance. The arena itself was massive. It wasn't a simple flat space, but a complex battlefield covering several thousand square meters. There were obstacles, barriers, areas with different gravity settings, environmental hazards, and terrain that varied from open ground to tight corridors. It was designed to test every possible combat scenario. Marcus walked out into the space, and the noise from the observation decks was overwhelming. Hundreds of voices talking, speculating, placing bets. He could see the Rathani cadet who had bet against him, surrounded by others making similar wagers. The odds were brutal. Most people were betting he wouldn't last a minute. Then the noise died. Lyra Vexthar entered from the opposite side of the arena. She was magnificent in a terrifying way. 7 feet tall, her body covered in obsidian scales that reflected the arena lights like dark mirrors. Her muscles moved under her skin with predatory grace, each movement precise and controlled. Her eyes were amber, slit-pupilled, and they tracked across the arena with the focus of a natural hunter. She wore minimal armor, just enough to meet Academy regulations. She didn't need more. Those amber eyes found Marcus and locked onto him. She moved forward with the flowing walk of a stalking predator. Every other species in the observation decks recognized that movement. It was universal. It was the walk of something that killed for survival. She stopped 10 meters away from him. "You are the human who volunteered." "That's me," Marcus said. His voice was steady. "You watch my combat recordings?" "Everyone I could access." Lyra tilted her head slightly, a gesture that was purely predatory. "Then you know what will happen here." "I have some ideas. You should have listened to the instructor." "This will be painful for you." Marcus smiled. It was genuine, reaching his eyes. "Probably. But where's the fun in playing it safe?" For the first time, Lyra showed a flicker of something other than cold confidence. Confusion. Prey didn't act like this. Prey showed fear. Prey tried to back down or make themselves small. This human was smiling at her. Actually smiling. The arena system announced the rules. Standard combat protocols. No lethal force. Match ends when one opponent cannot continue or verbally submits. Medical teams on standby. "Ready positions," the automated voice commanded. Marcus settled into a loose stance, not the rigid combat forms that other species used. Something fluid and relaxed, weight on the balls of his feet, hands up but not clenched. Lyra dropped into her fighting stance, and even through the observation windows, cadets felt a chill. She looked like violence waiting to happen. "Begin." Lyra moved, fast, impossibly fast. Her body blurred across the distance between them. Claws extended, aiming for a strike that would disable immediately. The kind of opening move that had sent her previous opponents to the medical bay before they could react. Marcus wasn't there. He had moved before she even finished accelerating, angling to the side and back. Not trying to block or counter, just not being where her attack was aimed. Lyra's claws cut through empty air and she spun to track him. He was already moving again, backing toward one of the obstacle clusters. His eyes never left her, but his feet seemed to know the terrain without looking. Lyra pursued, launching a combination attack, fast strikes meant to corner and overwhelm. Marcus evaded, ducked, rolled, backed away, always in motion, never committing to a position. He looked like water flowing around rocks, present but impossible to grasp. In the observation deck, the crowd had gone silent. This wasn't what anyone expected. They expected violence. They expected the human to try to fight back and be destroyed. Instead, they were watching something else entirely. 30 seconds passed. The Rathani cadet who had bet against Marcus made a strangled sound. Around him, others were leaning forward, fixated on the arena floor. 1 minute passed. Lyra was pressing harder now, her attacks more aggressive. But Marcus continued to evade. He used the obstacles, the terrain changes, the environmental features. When Lyra committed to an attack, he was already moving away from it. She was faster than him by any measure, but speed didn't matter if your target was never in the place you aimed. 3 minutes. Krathzor stood in the instructor's observation box, all 4 of his hands gripping the railing. His eyes were locked on the human. "What is he doing?" Another instructor whispered beside him. "Something I have never seen before." Krathzor replied quietly. 5 minutes passed, and Lyra had not landed a single solid hit. Glancing blows, near misses, but nothing that stopped the human's constant movement. And Marcus still hadn't thrown a single attack. He just moved and moved and moved. Lyra stopped for a moment, breathing harder than she had at the start. Marcus stopped too, maintaining the distance between them, his hands still up, still ready. Still smiling that calm, easy smile. "Why won't you fight?" Lyra demanded, and there was genuine frustration in her voice. "I am fighting," Marcus replied. "Just not the way you're used to." Lyra snarled and charged again, and the dance continued. Attack and evasion. Pursuit and retreat. The apex predator and the prey that refused to be caught. 10 minutes passed, 15 minutes, and slowly something was changing. Lyra's breathing was getting heavier. Her movements were still fast, still deadly. But there was a slight hesitation before each burst of speed, a fraction of a second longer to recover between combinations. Marcus noticed. Of course he noticed. He had been waiting for this. In the observation deck, a Zixith combat analyst suddenly stood up. "By the ancients," she breathed. "He is hunting her." The other cadets turned to stare. "Don't you see? He is not trying to avoid being killed. He is making her exhaust herself. He is the hunter. She is being hunted." And in the arena below, Marcus kept moving, kept evading, never stopping, always moving. The human way. 20 minutes had passed since the match began. In all of Lyra Vexthar's combat history at the Academy, no match had ever lasted this long. Most ended in under 60 seconds. The longest had been 8 minutes, and that opponent had been a heavily armored Crothian warrior with defensive plating that could withstand plasma fire. Marcus Chen was human. He wore standard training gear. He had no natural armor, no enhanced reflexes, no genetic advantages. And he was still moving. Lyra launched another attack, her claws aimed at Marcus's center mass. He twisted, letting the strike pass close enough that it cut through his training jacket but didn't touch skin. He rolled under her follow-up, came up 3 meters away, and immediately started moving again. His feet carried him toward a section of the arena with uneven terrain, rocks, and barriers that broke up sightlines. She pursued. She always pursued. That was what predators did. They chased. They caught. They killed. But this prey kept running, and it was wrong. Every instinct in her body screamed that prey should tire, should slow, should make mistakes. This human just kept going. Her breathing was heavy now. She could feel her muscles burning in a way they never had before. The high-gravity world she came from had made her species strong, but that strength came with a cost. Fast-twitch muscle fibers for explosive power meant energy burned quickly. Kurthan were ambush predators at their core. They struck hard and fast, ending fights before they became endurance contests. No one had ever made her run this long. Marcus vaulted over a low barrier, landing smoothly on the other side. Lyra jumped after him, her powerful legs launching her body in a perfect arc. She landed where he had been standing a moment before. He was already 6 meters away, circling back toward the center of the arena. "Stand still," she growled, and there was something desperate in her voice that she had never heard before. "Can't do that," Marcus called back. His breathing was elevated but controlled. "You're way too dangerous to stand still around." She charged again. This time, her burst of speed was noticeably slower than her first attacks. Still fast enough to kill most opponents, but Marcus had been watching her for 20 minutes now. He knew her patterns. Knew the micro-movements that came before she committed to an attack. The slight tensing of her leg muscles. The way her weight shifted. He sidestepped, and her claws cut through the space where his head had been. She spun for the follow-up strike, and he ducked under it, rolled away, came up running. 25 minutes. In the observation deck, no one was making noise anymore. Every cadet was pressed against the windows or leaning over the railings, watching something that shouldn't be possible. The betting boards had stopped updating. No one was thinking about money anymore. A human student, one of the few from Earth at the Academy, was explaining to her alien classmates. Persistence hunting. That's what he's doing. Ancient human technique. We didn't outrun our prey on Earth, we outlasted it. We chased it until it collapsed from exhaustion. But she is the predator, a Vexian cadet protested. Is she? The human asked quietly. Krathzor heard the exchange. His 4 eyes were fixed on the arena floor, and he was thinking about Earth's evolutionary history. He had read the files when humans joined the Alliance, but the information had seemed irrelevant. Humans were persistence predators. They had hunted by simply never stopping, chasing prey for hours until the prey's body gave out. He had thought it was a curiosity, an interesting historical note. He had never considered what it meant in combat. 30 minutes, Lyra stumbled. Just slightly, just for a moment. But Marcus saw it. Everyone saw it. She caught herself immediately, snarled in frustration and launched another attack. But the stumble had said everything. She was reaching her limit. Marcus had been waiting for this moment. He stopped retreating. When Lyra charged this time, he didn't run. He stepped into her attack inside her reach and struck. Not with power, but with precision. His hand hit a pressure point on her shoulder and her right arm went momentarily numb. She swung with her left and he was already moving, striking the back of her knee, disrupting her balance. She roared and spun, both arms extended in a wide attack meant to catch him, regardless of which direction he dodged. He dropped flat to the ground and her arms swept over him. Before she could recover, he swept her legs. Lyra fell. It wasn't a dramatic fall. She caught herself with her hand, started to push back up. But the fact that she had fallen at all sent shockwaves through the observation deck. Lyra Vexthar had never been knocked down. Not once. Not ever. She was up in an instant, but her movements were sluggish now. Her chest heaved with each breath. Sweat matted the scales around her face and neck. Her amber eyes were wide, and for the first time there was something other than predatory focus in them. Fear. Not fear of injury or pain. Fear of something more primal. The fear that every predator carried in the deepest part of their brain. The fear of becoming prey. "What are you?" she gasped. Marcus stood ready, his hands up, his stance balanced. He was breathing hard too. His face was flushed and sweat soaked his training clothes. But his eyes were clear, focused, and he didn't look like he was going to stop anytime soon. "Just human," he said. 35 minutes. Lyra charged again. But there was desperation in it now. Her attacks were wide, using too much energy, telegraphed. Marcus evaded the first strike, blocked the second, and countered with a precise hit to her ribs. Not hard enough to break anything, but hard enough to hurt. Hard enough to make her breathing even more difficult. She swung again. He ducked and struck her thigh, hitting the muscle cluster there. Her leg buckled slightly. She recovered, but slower. Everything was slower now. 40 minutes. Marcus was bleeding from half a dozen small cuts where her claws had caught him during the long chase. His left side ached where she had landed a glancing blow 10 minutes ago. Probably a cracked rib. His head throbbed from where he had hit a barrier wrong during one of his evasions. Possible concussion, but he kept moving. Because that was what humans did. They kept moving. When faster predators would have burned out, when stronger predators would have given up the chase, humans kept going. It was written into their DNA. Encoded across thousands of generations of ancestors who survived by simply refusing to stop. 45 minutes. Lyra's attacks were coming in slow motion now compared to her opening strikes. Marcus stopped evading entirely. He started countering. Each time she struck, he was there with a precise hit to a nerve cluster, a pressure point, a joint. He wasn't trying to overpower her. He was systematically breaking down her ability to continue. A strike to her shoulder. Another to her elbow, a sweeping kick behind her knee, a palm strike to her solar plexus that drove the air from her lungs. She was still dangerous. Every attack could still injure him badly, but she was running on empty and they both knew it. 50 minutes. Lyra threw a wild punch. Marcus caught her arm, used her own momentum to pull her off balance and swept her legs again. She fell harder this time. Got up slower. Stood there swaying, her breath coming in ragged gasps. "Yield," Marcus said quietly. "Never." The word was barely a whisper. She tried to charge one more time. Made it 3 steps. Her legs gave out and she collapsed to her knees. She tried to push herself back up. Her arms trembled. She couldn't do it. Marcus walked over carefully, staying just out of reach in case she had one more attack in her. But when he got close enough to see her eyes, he saw only exhaustion. Complete total exhaustion. She had never felt anything like this in her life. "Hell of a fight," he said and offered his hand. Lyra stared at the hand, at the human standing in front of her, at the prey that had become the hunter. Slowly she reached up and took his hand. His grip was firm, helping her back to her feet. "You never tried to defeat me," she said. "You just waited for me to defeat myself." Marcus smiled. "I told you. I knew what I was volunteering for. 52 minutes and 16 seconds. The official time flashed on the arena displays. The longest match in Academy history, and Lyra Vexthar's first defeat. In the observation deck, the silence broke, not with cheers or jeers, but with a sound like wind through trees. every cadet exhaling at once, releasing breath they hadn't known they were holding. The medical bay was quieter than Marcus expected. He had assumed there would be crowds of curious cadets, instructors wanting to debrief him, maybe even some media presence. Instead, there was just the soft beeping of monitoring equipment and the gentle hum of the medical scanner passing over his body. 3 cracked ribs, a mild concussion, extensive bruising across your back and shoulders, and multiple lacerations, the medical officer, a Salthian with 6 delicate arms, announced. You are very lucky, Cadet Chen. A few centimeters different on any of those strikes and we would be doing surgery instead of simple healing. How long until I'm cleared for duty? Marcus asked. 48 hours with accelerated healing, 72 if you want to be cautious. The medical officer's expression was hard to read, but there was something like respect in her large eyes. You should be proud. No one expected you to survive that match, let alone win it. I didn't win, Marcus said quietly. She just got tired first. That is winning from where I stand. After the medical officer finished, Marcus was moved to a recovery room. The healing accelerator worked on his ribs while he lay still, watching the ceiling and thinking about the match, about Lyra's eyes when she realized what was happening, about the moment when the predator understood she had become prey. He didn't feel victorious. Just tired, and a little sad. The door to his room slid open. Marcus turned his head expecting Krathzor or maybe one of the human cadets. Instead, Lyra Vexthar stood in the doorway. She looked different without the combat intensity. Still dangerous, still powerful, but there was something quieter about her now. She wore casual academy clothing, and her obsidian scales caught the soft light of the medical bay. She stood there for a long moment, saying nothing. You can come in, Marcus offered. Lyra entered slowly, moving to the chair beside his bed. She sat down with the careful control of someone whose body was still recovering. They cleared me an hour ago. Minor muscle strain. Severe exhaustion. Nothing permanent. Good, Marcus said, and meant it. I have been fighting since I was young, Lyra said, not looking at him. On my world, children learn combat as soon as they can walk. It is necessary. Everything on our planet wants to kill you. The weather, the wildlife, even the plants. We survive by being the most dangerous thing in any environment. Marcus listened silently. I have fought thousands of matches. Training fights, real fights, honor duels, survival situations. I have never lost, not once. The Gorthan do not lose. It is not in our nature. She finally turned to look at him. Until today. I'm sorry, Marcus said. Why are you apologizing? Because losing for the first time probably doesn't feel good. And because I know what it's like to have your whole understanding of yourself challenged. Lyra was quiet for a moment. You could have killed me 10 times over if you had fought my way. If you had tried to match my strength and speed, I would have destroyed you in seconds, I know. Then why didn't you? Why fight that way? Marcus shifted carefully, mindful of his ribs. Because fighting your way would be stupid. I'm not stronger than you. I'm not faster. I don't have claws or scales or the ability to see in multiple spectrums. If I tried to fight like a Kurthan, I'd lose every time. So you fought like a human. Yeah, like a human. Explain it to me, Lyra said. Help me understand what happened in that arena. Marcus thought about how to put it into words. On Earth, humans weren't always at the top. There were saber-toothed cats with fangs longer than my hand, bears that could take your head off with one swipe, wolves that hunted in packs. We didn't have any of that. No claws, no fangs, no natural armor. We were pretty weak compared to everything else. But you survived. We survived because we were stubborn and we never stopped moving. Our ancestors developed this hunting technique called persistence hunting. They would find prey, usually something fast like an antelope, and just start chasing it. The prey would run way faster than the human could. It would get away easily. Then how did you catch it? We didn't, not at first. We just kept following, tracking. The prey would run, then stop to rest. But before it could fully recover, there would be the human again, still coming. So it would run again, and again, and again. For hours, sometimes for days, until eventually the prey's body just gave out. It would collapse from exhaustion, and the human would walk up to it. Lyra's amber eyes widened slightly. That is horrifying. From the prey's perspective, yeah, probably. Imagine being chased by something that just never stops. You can't fight it, it won't quit, it just keeps coming no matter what you do. Eventually, you realize there's no escape. That no matter how fast you run, how far you go, it will still be there, still following, still waiting for you to get tired. That is what you did to me. That's what I did to you, Marcus confirmed. I couldn't beat you in a fair fight, so I didn't try. I made it an unfair fight, one where my advantages mattered more than yours. Lyra leaned back in her chair, processing this. My people are ambush predators at our core. We evolved to strike fast and end threats quickly. Long hunts are not in our nature. Our bodies are not designed for it. I know. I counted on that. You studied my species biology? I studied everything I could find. Combat recordings, yes, but also evolutionary history, physiological capabilities, energy expenditure rates. I needed to understand not just how you fight, but why you fight that way. What your body was designed to do. So you could find the weakness. So I could find the difference, Marcus corrected gently. Not a weakness, just a difference. Your way of fighting isn't wrong. It's incredibly effective, but it's effective in certain types of encounters. I just made sure our encounter wasn't that type. Lyra was silent for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. I have been taught my entire life that strength and speed determine the victor, that the most dangerous predator wins. You have shown me that this is not always true. Different situations need different approaches, Marcus said. Your way works great in most fights, but there are scenarios where endurance matters more than explosive power, where patience beats aggression, where the one who can last longest wins, not the one who hits hardest. It is a difficult lesson to learn. Yeah, I bet it is. They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes. The medical equipment continued its quiet beeping. Outside the recovery room, the sounds of the medical bay went on as usual. Finally, Lyra stood. I want to train with you, she said. Marcus blinked in surprise. What? You defeated me using techniques I do not understand. Methods I have never encountered. If I am to be the best warrior I can be, I need to learn these methods. And in return, I can teach you power techniques, show you how to make the most of your strikes, how to maximize damage with minimal movement. We can learn from each other. Marcus considered this. You're not angry about the match? I was. For about 10 minutes after it ended, I was furious, humiliated. I wanted to challenge you again immediately and crush you. Lyra's expression shifted, something that might have been a smile on a human. But then I thought about what you did. You saw an opponent that was superior in almost every measurable way, and you found a path to victory anyway. That is not something to be angry about. That is something to respect. I respect you too, Marcus said. You're one of the most skilled fighters I've ever seen. The fact that I won doesn't change that. Then we train together. Marcus extended his hand. We trained together. Lyra took his hand and her grip was careful, controlled. Not the crushing force she could have used, but the measured strength of someone who was learning that power wasn't always the answer. The instructors are already talking, she said. They want to study what happened in that arena. They are calling it a new combat paradigm. Great, Marcus said with a slight groan. I'm going to be studied like a lab experiment. You will be studied like a warrior who changed how the Academy thinks about combat, Lyra corrected. There is honor in that. After she left, Marcus lay back and stared at the ceiling again. His body ached. His head hurt. But there was a strange sense of peace settling over him. He had come to the Academy to learn how to be a better fighter. He hadn't expected to teach anyone anything, but maybe that was the point. Everyone had something to learn. Everyone had something to teach. Even a human and a Kurthan. 3 months had passed since the match that changed everything. The Galactic Military Academy looked the same from the outside, but something fundamental had shifted within its walls. Combat instructors were redesigning training programs. Tactical analysts were writing papers about endurance-based warfare. And 2 cadets, 1 human and 1 Kurthan, had become something no one expected. Partners. Marcus and Lyra trained together every day. In the mornings, Lyra taught Marcus power techniques, how to generate maximum force from minimal movement, how to strike pressure points with Kurthan precision, how to move like a predator when the situation called for explosive violence. Marcus was never going to match her raw power, but under her instruction, his strikes became dangerous in ways they hadn't been before. In the afternoons, Marcus taught Lyra endurance and patience, how to conserve energy over long engagements, how to read opponents and wait for mistakes instead of forcing confrontations, how to turn movement itself into a weapon. Lyra would never have human-level endurance, but she learned to manage her energy better, to pick her moments instead of relying purely on overwhelming force. They sparred daily and the matches were spectacular. Lyra's devastating power against Marcus's persistent evasion, her predatory instincts against his tactical patience. Sometimes she won, catching him in a moment of fatigue or a tactical error. Sometimes he won, outlasting her through careful energy management. But they both always learned. Other cadets watched these training sessions with fascination. The human-Kurthan partnership became the subject of intense study. What started as a shocking upset had evolved into something more profound. A demonstration that different species could learn from each other. That there was no single superior combat style, only different approaches for different situations. Instructor Krathzor watched it all with his 4 eyes and found himself reassessing decades of combat instruction. He called Marcus to his office one afternoon. "Cadet Chen," the Vexian said, gesturing to a chair. "I owe you an apology." Marcus sat down surprised. "Sir? I judged your chances against Lyra based on physical capabilities alone. Strength, speed, reflexes. I saw you as inadequate because you did not match the physical profile we have always associated with successful warriors." Krathzor's expression was serious. "I was wrong, and more importantly, I was thinking too small. I'm not sure I understand, sir." "The Alliance has been fighting the same way for centuries," Krathzor explained. "We identify species with superior physical capabilities and train them to maximize those capabilities. We build strategies around overwhelming force, superior technology, tactical precision. These methods work. They have won us many victories, but," Marcus prompted, "but they are not the only methods. You showed us that. You defeated an opponent who was superior in almost every measurable physical category by simply refusing to fight on her terms, by making the battle about something other than raw power." Krathzor leaned forward. "This is relevant now more than ever. We have a problem on the frontier." Marcus felt his attention sharpen. "What kind of problem?" "A new hostile species. We call them the Vraks. They appeared 6 months ago in the Outer Rim sectors and have been aggressively expanding into Alliance space. They are physically formidable, 7 to 8 feet tall, heavily armored exoskeletons, incredible strength and speed. They fight with overwhelming force and have not lost a single engagement." "They sound like the Kurthan," Marcus observed. "Exactly. They fight like Lyra fights. Or like she used to fight before you taught her patience. Our standard tactics are not working. They match our force with greater force, our speed with greater speed. We throw our best warriors at them and they break through. We need a different approach." Marcus began to understand where this was going. "You want me to teach your tactics instructors about persistence fighting, about turning endurance into a weapon. More than that, I want you and Lyra to deploy to the frontier together. As a team. Show our forces there how to fight enemies that seem unbeatable on paper. We're still cadets, sir. You are cadets who demonstrated something that our generals have failed to understand. Sometimes the key to victory is not fighting harder, but fighting smarter, fighting differently." Krathzor pulled up a holographic display showing the Vraks conflict zones. "Will you do it?" Marcus looked at the display, saw the red zones indicating Vraks-controlled space, saw the casualty reports. Saw the analyses that all basically said the same thing. The Alliance was losing because they were fighting on the enemy's terms. "I'll talk to Lyra," Marcus said. "She has already agreed," Krathzor said with something that might have been a smile. "She was here an hour ago. She said, and I quote, 'If the human goes, I go.' We are partners." Marcus found himself smiling too. "Then I guess we're going to the frontier." The graduation ceremony was held in the Academy's Grand Hall 2 weeks later. Hundreds of cadets from dozens of species stood in formation, receiving their commissions as officers in the Alliance military. When Marcus Chen's name was called, the applause was thunderous. When Lyra Vexthar's name was called immediately after, it was even louder. They stood together on the stage, the human and the Kurthan, and Krathzor himself performed the commissioning. "You two have taught this academy something we should have learned long ago. That diversity of thought is as important as diversity of species. That there are many paths to victory. That underestimating someone based on their physical capabilities alone is a fool's error." He pinned their rank insignia personally. "You are assigned to Frontier Task Force 7. operating in the contested zones against Vrak's incursion. Your mission is to teach our forces new tactics and to demonstrate that overwhelming force can be defeated by superior strategy. The Alliance is counting on you. After the ceremony, Marcus and Lyra stood on the landing pad, waiting for the transport that would take them to the frontier. Other graduates were celebrating, saying goodbyes, making plans for leave time before reporting to their assignments. Marcus and Lyra were leaving immediately. Nervous? Lyra asked. Terrified, Marcus admitted. We're going into a war zone to fight enemies that have never lost. With tactics that we barely tested. Yeah, I'm nervous. Good, fear keeps you sharp. She looked at him with those amber eyes. But I am not afraid we will fail. We work well together, we do. You know, when I first saw you volunteer for that match, I thought you were insane, suicidal. I could not understand why prey would volunteer to face a predator. And now I understand that you were never prey. You were simply a different kind of predator, one I had never encountered before. Lyra's expression softened. You taught me that there are many ways to be dangerous. That the biggest threat is not always the one with the sharpest claws. You taught me that power has its place, Marcus replied. That sometimes you need to be able to hit hard and fast. We balance each other out. The transport arrived, its engines humming as it settled onto the landing pad. Other soldiers were already aboard, veterans being redeployed to the front lines. They watched curiously as Marcus and Lyra boarded. A human and a Kurthan, fresh graduates heading into a war that was killing experienced soldiers. The transport lifted off, rising through the Academy's atmospheric shield and into open space. Through the viewports, Marcus could see the planet falling away below them, the Academy growing smaller. Above them, stars filled the darkness, countless points of light. Somewhere out there in that darkness, the Vraks were waiting, an enemy that fought with overwhelming force, an enemy that had never known defeat, an enemy that was about to learn the same lesson Lyra had learned in that arena 3 months ago, that there were humans in the Alliance now. And humans were very, very good at being stubborn. As the transport accelerated toward the frontier, Lyra pulled up tactical data on the Vraks. Combat recordings, physical specifications, battle analyses. She studied them with the same intensity she once brought to hunting. Marcus watched over her shoulder, his mind already working on the problem. They commit fully to every attack, he observed. No feints, no testing, just overwhelming aggression. Like I used to fight, Lyra said. Exactly like you used to fight. She turned to look at him. And you know how to defeat that. I know how to survive that. Which is the first step? What is the second step? Marcus smiled. The same calm, easy smile he had worn when he volunteered for their match. The smile that said he knew something everyone else had missed. We teach them that the scariest monster isn't the one that never gets tired. It's the one that never stops coming. Through the viewport, the stars streamed past as the transport jumped to faster-than-light speed. They were heading toward war. Toward danger, toward an enemy that seemed unbeatable. But they were heading there together. A human who understood that endurance was a weapon. A Kurthan who had learned that power without patience was incomplete. Partners who had learned to respect each other's differences and use them to become stronger together. Far ahead in the darkness of space, in the Vrak's command ship monitoring Alliance transmissions, an intelligence officer reviewed footage of the Academy match. Watched the human move and move and move until the supposedly unbeatable Kurthan collapsed from exhaustion. Thank you for watching and comment for next part.